The microphone is on? Yes, the microphone is on. You sure it's working? I'm sure it's working. Are you absolutely sure it is working? What do I look like? Do I look like some kind of an Erev Tov, everyone? Erev Tov. It is Monday night. It is 8 p.m. here on the east side of the United States, here in the diaspora. This is the House of Seven Beggars. Therefore, it must be Zeyde Story Corner with sound. Yeah, Zeyde Story Corner with sound. Okay, good to know that we are back again after who knows what happened last week. Things. Encoder was acting kind of weird last week. We first of all, we lost our sound for the first half of the show last week. And then on the Torah study, we could not get a connection in. I think we were connected in for like 10 minutes, and then it errored out, and we would never be able to get it back in. And it was an issue. Yeah, it was craziness. So we are back, and hopefully we will not have any of that nonsense going on this evening. How's your wife? Oh, my wife is doing very well. Thank you very much. She got her stitches out today, and she has permission to drive again. And but she's still gonna have to wear the boot for about 6 weeks. So anyway, she is doing fine, and she is on the mend. So let's go to the chat room and see who we have there. We have Donald, we have Marshall, we have Marilyn, we have Veronica, and that's so far. Yeah, so far. And we know they will be. They'll be drifting in fashionably late. Yeah, fashionably late as always. So we're going to continue on with the stories from the silly world of Helm. And we're going to pick up where we left off last week. We would have been farther along had we noticed. Yeah, had we noticed the mic wasn't working, we probably would be farther along in the book. But such as it is, everybody stuck through until the sound came back on, and we're very grateful that you did manage to stick with us through the difficulty. So let us get you on my camera. Yeah, on your camera. And yeah, well, that's working too. Yeah, it is. Okay, so let's get you situated here. So, okay. So, we are going to continue our stories from Helm. And we begin with this story, which is called The Pair of Shoes. Okay. Once upon a time, in the silly world of Helm, Yonkel the businessman walked into a little shoe store. "No, Yonkel," Moshe the shoe salesman greeted him. "It is indeed a pleasure to see you again. How can I serve you?" I don't know what I am going to do. Such aggravation I have. You can't even imagine. Imagine that. A Jew complaining like that. Can you believe that a Jew would never... Well, never mind. We go back to the story. Okay. "No, so tell me," said Moshe. "First of all, business is bad, and my wife drives me crazy all day long. My son, Shepsil, has been thrown out of school because he talks back to the teachers. My daughter wants to get married, but there isn't a marriage broker in town who can find her a nice boy. My creditors are banging on my door. My doctor just put me on a diet of only carrots and grapefruits. A piece of meat I am not permitted to have. So, what pleasure do I have? I walked through the town the whole day long in the seeming sun and the freezing rain. Yunkel sighed once more. What's the sense of talking about my tzores? Give me a new pair of shoes, size 10. Moshe looked at Yunkel and said, I'm going to give you a size 8. Yunkel pleaded, but why an 8 when we both know I need a size 10? If I took a size 8, they would pinch my feet the whole day. Ah, smiled Moshe. With all your aggravation, you deserve a little pleasure. Just think of the happiness you'll get every night when you take the shoes off. And so it was. From that day on, in the little village of Chelm, when anybody was in deep trouble, they would always go into a shoe store and purchase a pair of shoes 2 sizes too small, so they could enjoy the pleasure of taking them off after a long day of worry and work. Brilliant, huh? Brilliant. Okay. This next story is called The Patient. Once upon a time, I've said this before, but you think they could come up with a different kind of an introduction, maybe just once in a while. Yeah, I know, but that's the way they're written. I know, but every time, just once upon a time. Yeah, it's okay. So, or long ago, or something like. Can we just get back to well, yeah, of course, we go back to the story. Okay. Be patient. Once upon a time, in the little village of Chelm, a community of simple souls, Shepsil was not feeling well. Why don't you go to a doctor? Questioned the sage of Helm. A brilliant idea, marveled Shepsil. A short time later, he was visited by the sage of Helm, who wanted to see how his old friend was feeling. I don't feel so good, Shepsil sighed as he leaned over in his bed to greet the old sage. Did you go see a doctor? Of course. I went to see a doctor, he explained, Shepsil. Which doctor did you go to? Asked the old sage. Dr. Cronkite, replied Shepsil. No? So what did the doctor do for you? Asked the old sage. What did he do for me? Repeated Shepsil. He gave me a prescription and charged me 20 kopecks. 20 kopecks? Gasped the old sage. After all, the doctor has to live, sighed Shepsil. No, so what did he do then? Asked the sage. So I sent my wife, Razel, to the pharmacy to have the prescription filled. She came back yelling and screaming about the price of the medicine. How much did the pharmacist charge? Asked the sage. Shepsil weakly raised his hand, holding up 5 fingers, and sighed. He charged 5 kopecks. 5 kopecks, screamed the sage. After all, the pharmacist has to live, signed Shepsel. No. So what did you do next? Asked the sage. I tasted the medicine and I threw it away. You threw it away, shrieked the sage. Of course, sighed the Shepsel. Knowingly, I also had to leave. Okay. Oh boy. Okay. So we go on. This is called the perfect shidduch. Once upon a time, here we go again. Once upon a time, in the little village of Helm, Mendel, the garbage collector, decided it was time he got himself a wife. So he went to the house of the old sage and asked him for help and guidance. I'm looking for a nice woman, he began, one who will be able to raise a family with me and give me the understanding a wife gives a husband. The old sage smiled and thought for a moment. Then he went over to his desk and wrote a name on a piece of paper. Here is the name and address of a very fine woman. She is not wealthy, but she does not come from a poor family. She is a very religious girl who is very considerate of everyone. She is the ideal wife for you. Mendel smiled with appreciation. He took the old sage's hand and raced to the house with the piece of paper with the address in his hand. A few hours later, he returned to the home of the old sage of Helm. My dear sage, he began, I wouldn't marry that girl if she was the last girl on this earth. Did you know that girl has a terrible limp? The old sage put his hand on Mendel's shoulder and sighed. My dear Mendel, you don't understand. The girl is a diamond. From your words, you are showing great ignorance. Let me ask you something. Let us say I send you to the home of a girl who did not have a limp. Now, tell me, what guarantee would you have that the minute after you are married, or even 5 years after you are married and have a family, she won't trip and break a leg? And who would take care of the children during the time that it takes the leg to heal? Who would cook your meals? Who would be able to work with you when you plant your garden? It would probably take your entire life savings to get her back on her feet. You would probably have to run to the biggest doctors in Minsk to see that she recovered. Running back and forth to doctors, you might very well be away from your job so much that you might lose your job and be unemployed for years. With that heartache, you would be very angry with people and you would surely start to lose your friends. No one would speak with you and you would probably have to sell everything and move from Helm. So, listen, my dear friend, listen to me. Take this girl. She already had a broken leg and has cured with someone else's time and money. Everything is taken care of for you. Take this girl. She is a diamond. And so they were married and lived happily ever after. So maybe the sage is not such a fool after all, huh? That's some pretty good advice. Okay. That's a nice story. Okay, so this one is called The Philosophers. Once upon a time, in the silly world of Helm, Mottel the tailor and Laser the farmer were discussing the wonders of the world. I have come to the conclusion that the citizens of Helm are the smartest people in the world, exclaimed Mottel. I'm just going to pause there for a moment and let you think about that. Okay, now we go on. I have come to the conclusion that the citizens of Helm are the smartest people in the world, exclaimed Mottel. I would be inclined to agree with you, replied Laser. But why do you say that all of a sudden? Mottel was very serious. Let me explain. Isn't it true that while the cavemen were running around in animal skins, our people were so advanced they already had diabetes? Really? Laser shook his head sadly and agreed. In fact, Mottel exclaimed, our ancestors must have been brilliant because everyone else in this world needs wires for their telephones. They must have wires connected from one place to another to communicate. But our ancestors will be able to communicate without wires. Is that true? Laser grasped. Of course it's true, replied Mottel. Don't you remember when the archaeologists were digging in the ruins near our little village? They could not find a single piece of wire. They found all kinds of relics, but not one single piece of wire. I never thought of that, exclaimed Laser. Of course, Mottel proudly declared. Since everyone had to have a telephone, of course, our ancestors had telephones, but they operated without wires, as you can clearly see. One last question, begged Laser. Is it true our men are smarter than our women? I tell you, ladies, do not write me. I did not write this story. Okay, with that warning. One last question, begged Laser. Is it true our men are smarter than our women? Absolutely, sneered the Mottel. This is absolutely true. How can you be so certain? Questioned the Laser. How? Chuckled Mottel. Did you ever see a man who bought a garment that buttoned on the back? Indeed, sighed Laser. You are right. I never thought of that. Now I see why they consider you one of the wisest men in Helm. Mottel's wife, who was sitting nearby, heard the conversation and immediately passed the word to the other women in the village of Helm. From that day on, all the garments worn by the women in Helm had buttons sewn down the front. So, Now, if you ever see a woman wearing a dress that buttons down the front, of course, you will know immediately. She probably came from Helm. Okay, no letters. I did not write it. Okay. We go on before I get into too much trouble. Boy, I'm glad your wife didn't hear that one. Oh, so am I. I'll tell you what. Okay. So this one is called The Philosophy Student. In the silly world of Helm, Yonkel, the son of Moshe the tailor, was considered little better than average child. It was Moshe's dream to have his son become an educated man. And so it was with great pride that Yonko completed his elementary education with honors. Now he was ready for further learning. Moshe went to the sage of Helm and asked for his guidance. The old sage suggested that the boy be sent to a fine university in the big city of Minsk. Maybe he could become a doctor or even a great writer, the old sage suggested. So it was settled. Yonkel set out for Minsk to attend the great university. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into years. And finally, Yonkel graduated from university with honors. He returned to Helm. He was a hero. Tell me, my son, asked Moshe proudly, what did you learn in the great university? The young man smiled broadly and replied, well, we learned a great many things. I learned to speak a number of languages. I learned all the higher forms of mathematics, such as calculus and trigonometry. I learned all about elements of science, and I learned philosophy. Philosophy, beamed Moshe, who had always longed for an education. Tell me, what is this thing they call philosophy? I have heard many people speak of this. The youth knitted his brow and explained, I guess you could call it a process of simple deductions to prove a point. For example, you are here in Helm, but through a process of deductions, I can prove that you are really not in Helm, but actually are in Minsk at this very minute. The old man listened intently and nodded knowingly. Then he leaned over and tapped his son on the shoulder. What was that for? Uncle asked. I just wanted to prove your theory, the old man said. I want you to prove to me how I can be in Minsk instead of Helm, and also tell me who just tapped you while I was away. When the sage of Helm heard what had happened, he issued an order that from that day on, no one in the village of Helm was ever to be sent to university to learn such foolishness. After all, if a person is in Helm, how could they be someplace else? The old sage explained that this could be a terrible thing, because what would happen to the people who took a train to a distant village when all of a sudden, through philosophy, they find themselves in the very village they were traveling to? Boy, I don't know about that one. Okay. Philosophy. Yeah. What can I tell you? Philosophy. Yeah. Okay. Okay. We move on. Okay. This story is called, we do one more story, then we take a break, okay? Okay. This story is called The Pious One. In the tiny village of Helm, wait a minute. What did you say? I was reading the story. Yeah, but how did you start the story? In the tiny village of Helm. No, once upon a time this time. What do you know about that? There is a little bit of variety in here. Okay. So, in the tiny village of Helm, there was an old-timer everyone called the Pious One. Reb Chaim was a jovial old-timer and enjoyed this unique title. One day, a stranger came to the village of Helm, and as he walked through the streets, he met the sage of Helm. I understand you have a man in this village who is so religious that he fasts every day of the week until Shabbos and Sunday. Is it true? The sage nodded his head in agreement and pointed to the house of Reb Chaim. Now, wait a minute, the stranger exclaimed. If that is the house of the Pious One, then he's a fraud. Why, only this morning, as I passed his house, I saw him eating like the food was going out of style. He's a fake, a phony. The sage was taken aback. Oh, you are wrong, my friend, the sage exclaimed. Reb Chaim is indeed the most pious man in our village. Then how do you explain the fact that I saw him eating on a weekday when you tell me he fasts the entire week? The stranger questioned. Oh, exclaimed the sage. You see, he is an extremely modest man, and he was demonstrating his modesty. The only reason he ever eats on weekdays is to hide the fact that he is fasting. Oh, guessed the stranger, now I understand. Seriously? Yes, that's what it says. Okay. Oh, the stranger, guessed the stranger, now I understand. And to this very day, when old-timers get together, they recall the story of Reb Chaim, the Pious One of Helm, who fasted 5 days a week, and only because of his modesty, ate on weekdays to conceal his fasting. And there you have it. Okay. So we are going to take our break. I think that's a good place to take a break after that story. Yeah, I think maybe you're right. Yeah. Okay. So we are going to take our break. And when we return, we will pick up with the next story, which is called The Plaque. So please, everyone stay tuned, and we will be back in 6.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
It's intermission time, folks, so hurry, hurry, hurry. Step right over to our refreshment center for the most extravagant array of refreshment goodies ever assembled under one roof. Enjoy breathtaking, mouth-watering goodies, everything from a snack to a delicious full meal. At our refreshment center, you'll find a large variety of goodies to satisfy your hunger, your thirst, or your sweet tooth. So hurry, hurry, hurry. Visit our refreshment center now. The show starts in 5 minutes. The show starts in 4 minutes. The show starts in 3 minutes. The show starts in 2 minutes. The show starts in 1 minute. And now, on with the show.
And we are back. Okay, so, we have used that break for a long time. Yeah, it's been quite a few years that we've been using that. I think we should do something, maybe next week we do something a little different. What do you got in mind? Oh, that's a good idea. That is a good idea. I think you're right. I think we'll try that next week and see how it goes. I think it would be a nice change, and maybe if everybody likes it, we do it more often. Okay, so we'll do that. Okay, let us see who has joined us since we went and started the stories. Okay, so we have Simcha. But Abraham has joined us, and Colleen has joined us, and let's see, David has joined us, and let's see, who else? It seems to be about it. Okay, so let us return to our stories, and we were going to start the next story, which is called The Plaque. If you ever happen to pass through, see, there's 2 in a row. Can you believe that? Yeah, amazing, isn't it? 2 in a row. They've changed it up. Okay, I'm happy. I'm a happy Zeyde. Okay, so if you ever happen to pass through the village of Helm, you will see a little plaque dedicated to the great maid, the teacher. So why would they decide to dedicate a plaque to the teacher of children? And who was this teacher? He was a nothing, a poor soul. No matter what business he went into bankruptcy a few weeks later. Misfortune after misfortune followed him. Then one day he went to the sage of Helm and told him he had a wonderful idea. "Oh, dear sage," he began, "I have found a way to guarantee eternal life to everyone in the village of Helm." The sage was impressed. "So, tell me how you can guarantee eternal life to everyone in our village." "You see," the maid began, "when I went into the business of manufacturing hats for women, the following season women wore kerchiefs, and my business failed miserably. The next year, when I went into the business of making ties for men, the new style came out and men wore no ties. So, I was thinking, if I went into the business of manufacturing shrouds, no one would die." "Magnificent!" exclaimed the old sage. "Indeed, that is true. Every business you went into failed because people stopped using whatever you made. Now, if you manufacture shrouds, of course, no one would die." Oh, this brilliant thinking, don't you think so? I don't know if I kind of agree with that or not. Oh, you got to think of from that point of view. That's brilliant thinking. Okay, why didn't anybody ever think of this before? I'm sure somebody probably has. Well, anyway. The old sage was so thrilled. He handed the mother maid the money he needed to purchase cloth and the sewing equipment. "Thank you," exclaimed the miller maid. as he turned in great excitement and fell out the window. And so it was on the very spot where the Melomade fell to his final rest that the plaque was installed. A tribute to the man who could have brought eternal life to the silly world of Helm. Oy. Okay. Too bad the guy died. Yeah, it is too bad he died. Well, it's always too bad if someone dies. Yeah, but we'll never know if he was right. You think? Well, I'm just saying, that's all. I'm just saying, maybe in some strange way, maybe he was right. I'm not saying it's true. I'm just saying maybe. And now we will never know. Okay, well, whatever. Why don't we move on to the next story? Maybe there's something more about eternal life there. Okay, let us do that. Okay, so this story is called The Poor Dog. Mortal, that's 3 in a row. Can you believe that? 3 in a row that didn't start once upon a time. Okay. Anyway, we're on a roll here. That isn't that they what they call a turkey? Yeah, in bowling, yeah, it's called a turkey. In hockey, it's called a hat trick, right? Yep, that's right. Okay. So anyway, so we move on with our hat trick here. Okay. Mortal the tailor in Helm had a dog, Velvel, that was as loyal as any dog could be, and ran after his master wherever he would go. When Mortal sat at his table sewing garments for the man and the woman of Helm, Velvel sat happily at his feet. On the cold nights, Velvel would jump up into Mortal's bed and lie down at his feet to keep his master warm. What a good dog. Yeah, very good. But as the years passed, and Velvel and Mortal grew old, now every time Mortal would get up to walk, he would trip over his dog. Velvel would give a pain-filled yelp, and Mortal would apologize and massage him to ease the pain. Oh, what a good man. One day, Mortal went to the old sage of Helm. I still think we need to have an echo on that. The old sage of Helm, Helm, Helm. That would sound good, wouldn't it? Well, I don't know. Yeah, okay, I'll go along with that. It probably would sound good. But thank you for agreeing. Okay. So anyway, what happens with this dog? Okay, well, anyway. One day, Mortal went to the old sage of Helm, 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 Helm. Okay, enough. Let's just get on with the story. Okay. And poured out his heart. I love my friend Velvel. He has been loyal to me all my life. It hurts me every time I trip over him. In my old years, he is the only one I have left. Can you help me, dear sage? The old sage rubbed his chin, looked at Mortal, and explained, the years have been good to you, and you have been equally faithful to your wonderful Velvel. But as the years go by, the eyes begin to grow weaker, and that is the reason you keep stumbling over the dog. The dog has also aged, and his eyes are becoming weaker too. And he can't see you get out of your way. It is very obvious that what is needed here is a simple pair of glasses. Once the glasses are in place, I am sure your problem will be solved. Motel thanked the old sage and ran to Chaim, the glasses maker. A few days later, the old sage of Helm went to visit Motel to see how he was doing. He entered the house and called out to Motel, "Well, my friend, did you take my advice about getting eyeglasses?" "Indeed I did," Motel called from another room. "And it has worked beautifully." The old sage walked into Motel's workshop, and there was sitting Motel, sewing away without his glasses. "You said you followed my advice?" the old sage questioned. "I did," replied, as Velvel rose to greet the sage. "And the glasses that solved the problem? Since I put the glasses on my dear friend Velvel, I haven't tripped over him even once. Now he sees me when I am coming and gets out of my way." And so, if you ever visit the village of Helm and see a tailor being followed by a dog wearing glasses, you will know that both are well on in years. Glasses on a dog. Can you think of anything more ridiculous? Yeah, maybe one thing kind of springs to mind. What would that be? Well, never mind. Let's just go on with the story. Now, I'm curious. What could be more ridiculous than a dog wearing glasses? Let's just go on with the story. You're not going to no, I'm not going to say. I'm not going to say. I'm sorry I said anything to start with. Okay. I'm going to ask you again later after we are off the air. Okay. So, this story is called The Prisoner. Once upon a time, in the village of Helm, the Tsar's soldiers surrounded the town. Oh my goodness. The old sage of Helm protested their looting, and for this he was arrested and taken to jail in Minsk. Those were dark days in Helm, but there was little the simple farmers could do. The wife of the old sage of Helm was beside herself. She wrote to her husband as often as possible, telling him of the awful things that were happening in their little village while he was gone. As the planting season was approaching, she did not know what to do, since there was no one to help her turn over the soil. So she wrote to her husband, "Everyone here is afraid, and most of the men are in hiding. I do not know how I will be able to plant the potato crop this year." The old sage got the letter in jail and wrote back immediately. "Indeed, it is a great tragedy, but if you do find someone to help you turn the soil, please do not let them dig in the main field. That is where I hid the weapon the Tsar's men were looking for." Of course, the letter was sent from the prison was read by the Tsar's censors. When they read about the weapons being buried on the farm of the old sage of Helm, the Tsar ordered his men to return to Helm to look for the weapons. They dug and dug. They turned over every inch of soil, but they found nothing. Finally, in disgust, they left. As soon as the Tsar's men left the village, she wrote to her husband once more. The Tsar's men returned this week, and for some strange reason, dug up the entire main field. Not an inch of ground was left untouched. Nevertheless, they found nothing. The old sage leaned back in his jail cell and penned another letter to his wife. It read, "Now, go plant the potatoes." So, from that time on, whenever anyone was taken prisoner in Helm, and they wanted their field turned over for planting, they simply sent a letter to their wife, cautioning her not to allow anyone to dig in the field, because that was where the weapons were hidden. Of course, there never was any weapons buried in the field, but then again, who said all the fools in the world lived in Helm? Indeed, some live in Minsk too. See, I told you, I think the sage has a little more on the ball than most people are giving him credit for. Okay, there's a few stories like this in here, where the old sage gets the better of somebody, just by kind of outwitting them just a little bit. Okay. Okay, we have time for one more. This one is called The Psychologist. Once upon a... Here we go. We're back to that again. Yeah, I see. But you got 3 in a row, so, you got your hat trick or your turkey or whatever. Yeah, I guess I'll have to be satisfied with that for tonight. Okay, so. This Psychologist. Once upon a time, in the village of Helm, Motel the tailor was having some serious problems. He had gone to see the sage of Helm a number of times, but the sage could not help him. "My friend," the old sage exclaimed, "I have heard that in the village of Minsk there is a special kind of doctor who might be able to help you." The old sage wished Muttle well as he set out for Minsk and the special doctor. When he arrived at the doctor's office, Muttle explained that the sage had sent him. "I see," said the doctor. "I am what they call a psychologist, and from what you tell me, I think I might be able to help you. Now, all you have to do is lie down on this couch and tell me the first thing that comes into your mind." Freudian, eh? Yeah, I don't know. We'll find out. I bet you he's a Freudian. Okay, I'll take your word for it. Okay, so Mottle lay on the couch for 15 minutes, but did not utter a word. The doctor questioned him. "Can't you think of anything to say?" "No," replied Mottle. At the end of the session, the doctor said, "That will be 25 zoltas, please. We'll try again tomorrow." Mottle gave the doctor the money and left. The very next day, Mottle returned. "Now, lie down on the couch," the doctor ordered, "and tell me the first thought that comes into your mind." Mottle lay on the couch again, but did not say a word. At the end of the session, he said, "I couldn't think of anything to say." "Okay, We'll try again tomorrow, said the doctor. That will be 25 zloites, please. Malta paid the doctor and left. The very next day he returned. Please, lie down on the couch and tell me the first thought that comes to your mind, said the doctor. Moto lay on the couch then, hesitantly, looked at the doctor and asked, I thought of something. Maybe you need a partner. Okay, that one was too bad to end on. So we do one more story. Okay. That one didn't it smelled like old fish. Okay, anyway, we go on. The Punishment, this one is called. Once upon a time, in the silly village of Helm, the people were concerned about a crime problem. We must build a jail to hold anyone who steals from us, exclaimed one of the elders of Helm. That is foolishness, declared the old sage of Helm. We haven't ever had a real criminal in all of Helm since we became a village. But what if we did find a criminal? And if, after a trial by jury, he is found guilty, where would we put him if we don't have a jail? The old sage pondered the question and with measured logic. Suddenly, a smile came over his face. I have the solution, and it is so simple. All we have to do is drill 2 holes in the back of the shul wall. If we should ever find a criminal who is to be punished, he will be ordered to go to the shul and place his hands in the holes for a specific period of time to serve out his sentence. Everyone cheered. What a brilliant solution! Incredible! Then one of the leaders rose. Brethren, the wisdom of our sage must go unquestioned, but what will happen if the criminal who puts his hand in the holes should suddenly decide to pull his hands out of the hole during the night when we are all asleep? Everyone nodded. Indeed, he is right. The criminal could escape. The old sage rose to his feet and exclaimed, and for that, too, I have a solution. After we drilled 2 holes in the shul wall to make the criminal place his hands in the holes, then if we fear he might escape, we will simply order him to make clenched fists. Once his fists are clenched, he would not be able to remove them, and he would be forced to remain there all night long. Everyone cheered and agreed this was a magnificent solution. And from that day on, if anyone was caught stealing in Helm, the punishment was as prescribed. Okay, so we have come to the end of our time together tonight. I want to thank you all for being here and for putting up with what happened last week. And we're making sure that we're making sure the microphone is working. Okay, just asking. Okay, so don't forget the Torah study in depth with Rabbi A on Thursday. And then, of course, Shabbat services on Kabbalat Shabbat on Friday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern, and Shabbat Shachrit and Musaf service at 10 a.m. on Shabbat. So, until next week, my dear friends, we will simply say, Laila Tov.